welcome back to Hand Me Down Recipes. This is Kathy, and today we have Violet from Right at Home with us. How are you, Violet?
I'm doing good today. How are you, Kathy?
I am great. Thank you so much. And we are here to talk about your turkey recipe, which is obviously very apropos because we're going to have Thanksgiving here in the United States pretty quickly. So let's talk first, because your recipe is slightly different than it has a lot more herbs and spices than I'm used to using on a turkey. Maybe other people are used to it. I'm not, for whatever reason. I don't know why, because I quite like herbs and spices, but I guess I don't know. So, well, tell us a little bit about your turkey recipe. How did you come by it? How was it passed down? That kind of thing.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm not actually sure how long this recipe has been in my family. I've talked to different people trying to figure it out, and no one really knows. They just know it's been in the family for years, and it's the turkey recipe I grew up on. It's just kind of the classic. My family, well, we actually came from Amish roots, and my grandfather grew up Amish. Then my mom grew up Mennonite. I wasn't raised Mennonite, but so I call it an Amish turkey. Not sure if it technically is, but we're a family of Amish cooks, and this is an old family recipe. So figured that was good. But yeah, it's a great recipe. It's definitely the only one that I've ever had at Thanksgiving with my family. And now that I'm making Thanksgiving turkey sometimes, it's the only one that I'll ever make. It's just so much more flavorful than the other ones I've tried. A lot more moist. Yeah, like you said, lots more herbs and spices. So it's a fun one to try.
So tell me, you can tell me generally, you don't have to tell me exactly where, but like, where are you in the world? When you say Amish, I think
Yeah, I'm in North Carolina.
Oh, okay. So that is not one of the first locations that popped to mind when I think
Yeah.
Amish. Because I grew up in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
I
nice.
have an aunt I'm very close to who lives in Iowa, and I lived there for a while. And we have small Amish communities here in Montana.
Yeah.
Very small, comparatively speaking. So
yeah, North Carolina isn't a big Amish state, but my family moved down here after leaving the Amish community.
Okay, good enough. Okay. And so tell us, this is interesting. I love when people are like, I don't know how long it's been in the family. It's just always been there, right? Like that's like the kind of stuff. Like that's what we want to know. So well, we will link to the recipe. Tell the listeners what herbs and spices we're using in your turkey.
Yeah, so it's a lot. So let me get the full list because I don't want to forget anything here.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And we will link to it because people won't remember either. But
yeah, but there's obviously salt and pepper, and then it has sage, curry, garlic, parsley, celery seeds, paprika, dry mustard, allspice, and bay leaves. Oh. And yeah, that's a lot.
Go ahead.
The nice thing with it is if you're missing like one spice, or it calls for large amounts of spices because you're usually making turkey for a large gathering, like 20 pounds or something. So if you run out of one spice, if you miss getting one, the nice thing is this turkey is very flexible. And while I do recommend using all the spices that it calls for, there have been a few times where it's like, oh no, I only have half the amount of sage or something like that, or I just ran out and it's last minute, Thanksgiving dinner is in 8 hours and I don't have time to go grocery shopping. The nice thing is you can kind of customize it a little bit. Definitely recommend sticking to it as much as possible, but it does taste great even if you have to adjust that a little bit.
Right. So if you don't like something for some reason, if you really don't like celery, and I know some people actually have celery allergies, so if that's like a thing, you could skip it and you would be fine.
Oh, absolutely.
It would be different, but you could. And I think the one that surprised me the most, for whatever reason, I guess just a white girl not really living in a place where we use a lot of spices or something. You know, I'm always very far north of the Mason-Dixon line. But curry was like the one, for whatever reason, surprised me. The other spices, not so much. I mean, there is a lot of them, but I mean, like sage is pretty typical, right, with a poultry. So but the curry is a little surprising, but very tasty. So do you only do this on turkeys, or do you do it like on a whole chicken too? Obviously, the amount would be different.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great idea. I haven't ever thought to do it on a whole chicken, but now that you mention it, that's definitely something I want to try because I do think that would be fantastic.
Right. And obviously
this has typically just been kind of a Thanksgiving turkey recipe.
Right. Okay, great. And you have some interesting tips. So obviously I have done the kind of thing where like you rub like herbs and butter together, like a compound butter up under the skin of the turkey and chicken and cook it that way and then baste with those juices. But you actually say to cut the slits into the turkey, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so as you're making this turkey, at the very beginning before you roast it, you're going to cut about 8 to 10 pretty deep slits in the breast meat, in the legs, really anywhere there's enough meat to get a knife in, and make a big cut. And this just allows you to really get the spices into the meat Because if you're just putting it on the outside, people who aren't getting much of the skin are really not going to get all that flavor. But this really allows the spices to penetrate. It allows the olive oil to penetrate. So it just really leads to a much more flavorful turkey.
And that is a really good tip. And I have done that. Like I've even done with pork roast, not with turkey,
Mm-hmm.
where I've like cut the slits and actually put like whole cloves of garlic in there.
Yeah.
Right? To kind of get the real good, get a lot of flavor in there. So anytime you can kind of get the flavor deeper into the meat, obviously the more it's
Mm-hmm.
going to flavor. So it's not just on the skin, which like you said, not everyone likes the skin. I
Yeah.
find that hard to believe, but not because I love the skin, right? But not everybody does. And so, you know, for those people, you're still getting a very flavorful and juicy meat, right? Because even though you're
Yeah.
cutting these slits, it's not going to be a dry bird because you recommend basting quite frequently throughout the
Yeah.
Plus, you also you suggest putting the spices and everything on for a whole day almost, right? Overnight.
Yeah. You're going to let it marinate for like a whole day, overnight pretty much. Usually the morning before Thanksgiving or the morning before the meal. I just prep it, put in the spices, well, cut the slits, put on the spices, and then just cover it for pretty much 24 hours, give or take. And that really allows the spices to penetrate, just create such a flavorful bird.
Right. That is really favorite. And so, do you mostly and your family? So, obviously, Thanksgiving, we understand there's like a million side dishes, right? I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
it's not like we don't really need to give anyone possible serving ideas. This is whatever your normal kind of feast meal would be. And do you make it only at Thanksgiving, or do you do it like other holidays too?
It's typically Thanksgiving's the main one. Like, you're not going to have Thanksgiving with my family without this turkey.
Okay.
But it's also not uncommon to have it throughout the year. Sometimes growing up, my mom would even buy a turkey like the day after Thanksgiving on sale, freeze it, and then some random time during the year she'd make this again. It might be in the springtime, just whenever it's like, oh, we have a turkey in the freezer. And then, yeah, it would be great for Christmas, anything like that.
Sure. So I always buy I buy turkeys locally. I actually end up buying them usually from the Hutterite communities, which we have
Oh,
here, which
nice.
are kind of related to Amish and Mennonite. They're all kind of they're different but similar.
Mm-hmm.
And they speak the same kind of low German language. But so we have Hutterite communities, and that's usually where I buy my turkeys. And you can only buy them once a year, and so I almost always buy two. One for
Yeah.
the Thanksgiving, even though this year it's just my husband and I, but we still want to have turkey. We'll buy a small one. And I buy one for later because we like the turkey, and that's about the only time we can do it. So that's a good idea if you have it when turkeys are on sale this time of year. Absolutely consider buying an extra one, assuming you have the freezer space, and do this later. And like we were saying, I feel like you could obviously reduce the amount, but make a chicken with it,
Oh,
a whole
yeah,
chicken.
definitely. This would be delicious on chicken.
Yeah, or even maybe a duck. I'm not a
Yeah,
huge
I don't
fan
know.
of duck, but you could probably.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
feel
know.
like
It
the
always seems
spices,
yeah.
yeah, the spices are, even though they're unique, it doesn't create like an odd tasting bird. They all blend together very well. So I really feel like you could do this on pretty much any white meat.
Right. And I feel like because the spices are pretty common, right? Like every once in a while we do a recipe here at Hand Me Down Recipes where I talk to somebody, I'm like, yeah, I couldn't find that because I live in a small town. And so I can't always find, I can't find particular, especially if we're talking international, like Indian recipes
Mhm.
or even Asian recipes of any kind. Like sometimes it's not so easy for me to find certain things. But these are all spices that everybody's going to be able to find in their regular spice aisle. I don't think anybody would have any trouble. I always feel like if I don't have trouble in my little town
Yeah,
of 5,000, that nobody's going to have trouble.
yeah,
And
I
of
don't
course,
think so.
nowadays you can always order stuff online, but we can try to support our local grocery stores. So this is a really relatively accessible recipe for anyone. And I know, right? Like obviously the Thanksgiving meal or any sort of holiday meal is kind of stressful and everybody wants to get it right. And it's probably not like the first time you want to try something new, but this recipe I feel like is going to be anyone's going to love it, right? As long as they like turkey and they're not
Yeah,
allergic to anything, they're going to love it. So
yeah, definitely. I know my dad actually does not like turkey in general, but he loves this turkey recipe because it's a lot juicier. I don't know, in some ways it almost reminds me more of chicken just because of, yeah, just how it's juicier, the basting, the slits in the meat, just gets it a lot more flavorful.
yeah.
So even if you're not a huge fan of turkey, this is definitely one to try if you just want to do something traditional on Thanksgiving.
Right.
And it's definitely an easy recipe, even though there's a lot of steps as far as like you have to make the slits in the meat and then stick the spices and the oil in them. There aren't really any complicated steps. So the first time I made it myself, I wasn't with family. I didn't have anyone like standing over my shoulder teaching me how to make it. I just had like I think my mom texted me a picture of her old recipe card that was
Ah,
handwritten,
I
and I
love
just
it.
made
Yeah.
it.
Perfect.
And it turned out just the same as it always had. So it's a pretty easy one to start with. So if you've never made turkey before, I think this is one you definitely could succeed at. A lot simpler than frying or doing something more
Oh,
unique.
yeah. Yeah, the frying gets really, yeah, I don't even try.
Yeah,
Well, I don't want to buy the big special turkey fryer, honestly, but
exactly.
because like you're gonna use it once a year, maybe, and yeah, I
Yeah,
don't want it. But this is yeah, like you said, this is something anybody who's even a very novice cook could tackle and feel really confident that they're gonna turn out a nice juicy bird, right? Because that's what everyone's always afraid of. They're always afraid that it's going to be dry and like flavorless. But
yeah.
there's just no way that you can do that with this particular recipe.
No,
Yeah.
there's a lot of steps in here to just kind of reduce that likelihood, from
Right.
cutting the slits to basting frequently to letting it marinate overnight. And then it also cooks slow and slow.
Right. And that is the thing. So everybody needs to remember that, you're not cooking it at 450 degrees
No.
for like 15 minutes and then whatever. So it is really a low and slow kind of thing. Yeah, of course your oven is occupied during that time. And if you only have one oven and it's a big turkey, you can't put a lot of other stuff in there necessarily. Plan ahead so that you can do all the various side dishes that you want. But you do, when it comes out of the oven, you do want to let it rest for at least 30 minutes, right? An hour is fine, even. Just tent it so
Yeah.
it stays kind of warm. And so you can do the extra side dishes that need to be in the oven or whatever. So just plan ahead. And I think one of the things we're not very good at these days, and I saw a professional like chef, like one of the like food TV kind of chefs. He was like, I think people need to learn how to read a recipe. Like we don't do that anymore. We just kind of like dive in. But I would recommend that everyone always read a recipe
Yes.
before you like ever cook. And I'm a very experienced cook. There is never a time that I don't read the recipe from beginning to end before I start because I want to make sure I'm understanding. And also because I am an experienced cook. So sometimes if I'm reading a recipe and I feel like, oh, that doesn't seem right, then I know when I'm there, like if it doesn't turn out, it's probably because I was right. Something's not right in there. Or maybe it does turn out. There was recently a cake recipe I made where the author said it's going to be a very thin batter. And I thought, this is way too thin, but it turned out perfect, right? So you have to just kind of learn to, and so because this does have steps like marinating, making sure that you cook it for so many hours at a certain temperature and then reduce the temperature. You want to make sure that you understand that going in so that you have the best chance for success. It's not difficult. It just requires a little attention. Yeah? Do you think that's
Yes,
fair?
exactly. Yeah, definitely. This is when you want to read in advance. And I would say read it like a week in advance, first
Yeah.
time, just so you can kind of plan out when it's going to take up fridge space, when it's going to take up oven space, kind of figure all those things out so that by the time it gets to be the day before Thanksgiving and you want to get the process started, you know what you're going to need to do and there aren't any surprises.
Right. Right. Because you can't be pulling your turkey out of the freezer
No,
the day you want to cook it.
no.
So and it takes a lot of time to thaw a turkey. So yeah, make sure that you have planned ahead. And that's a really good tip, actually, just in general because once you have it, once you've done it once or even twice, you'll have it figured out for the future. But just the first time, always just kind of read it and understand so that you can plan that day, especially if you're having company and it's going to be like chaos, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody's bringing their dish to bring that you got to reheat and whatever, and all the kids running around, and just the way those kinds of days go. So absolutely just plan a little bit ahead. You'll be so glad you did. Great.
Yes.
Do you have any other tips or tricks for this recipe that we should have?
It doesn't, I think we pretty much covered every tip and trick. Definitely this cutting the slits in it and stuffing it with spices. That's a huge one for this turkey. And then you have to baste it a number of times. So you'll first cook it at 325 for a few hours. And then afterwards, you'll reduce that temperature and then you'll start basting. And you'll need to baste it pretty frequently. It's best to do about every hour or so. But again, that's flexible. If you're busy and you're like, oh no, it's been an hour and 15 minutes. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Just go
yeah,
baste the turkey. You're fine.
yeah.
But that's kind of the goal, just to be constantly basting it. And then, like you mentioned, you definitely want to let it rest again before carving it, which is honestly best because no one wants to pull a steaming hot turkey out the oven, set it on the table, and just go. You need
Yeah.
some time to carve it, and then you want some time to reheat your other dishes or maybe throw a few new things in the oven that you prepped while it was baking. So definitely the resting is important, but just don't stress about it. It's gonna turn out. This recipe has a lot of steps, and they all kind of, I don't know, they almost like provide a little bit of, what's the word? They work together so that if one step gets missed a little bit, it's not a big deal. You don't do one thing perfectly. There's kind of a safety net in another step to help with that same issue. For example, like the marin or the cutting the slits and stuffing it with spices. That's great for flavor, but marinating it is also great for flavor.
Right.
So you kind of have two things there to help with flavor, and then with the moisture, cooking it low and slow is helpful, basting it's helpful, letting it rest is helpful. You have numerous steps that really target the same areas, so it's gonna turn out great no matter what happens, as long as you don't do anything too crazy and stray too far from the recipe.
Right, as long as you don't burn it, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You're probably going to be okay. And,
Yeah,
I think that's, go ahead.
No, you're good. And that is one thing, to not get scared at the end and like crank up the temperature. I know my family's done that a few times where it's like you didn't plan ahead quite well enough and you get towards the end and it's like, oh no, I don't know if the turkey's going to be done. If you're within the time frame and your oven's the right temperature, just trust it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you're cooking a thawed turkey and your oven isn't like way off.
Right.
But as long as everything is within the realm of normal, just trust the process, calculate things, and resist the temptation to just crank up the temperature at the end just to make sure it's done.
A food thermometer is like everyone's best friend.
Yes, exactly.
And they're not that expensive, so buy one. You'll be glad.
Exactly. And even if you don't have one, just cut into it a little bit and make sure the juices run clear, and you're fine that way too.
That's right. That's right. So I'm a big fan of the food thermometer because I'm just always like, you know what? Then I'm always safe. It's just better to be safe than sorry. And I've had a thermometer forever and ever and ever and ever. So it's like once you buy one, you'll probably have it forever. So don't worry
exactly.
about it. So, and I love what you said about like don't stress about it. And I think this is true for most recipes, at least that we're doing in our home kitchens, right? Like
yes.
we're not making like seafoam fancy plates, right? We're just doing simple things. I think most of the time we all think it needs to be much more complicated than it is. And this is just a great example of simple things, flavorful things come together to make something else more flavorful and delicious. It doesn't have to be like this huge, like I'm always so sorry for people who feel so stressed about cooking because it doesn't need to be that way. It's actually, it should be fun. It should be fun and joyous and delicious. And that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good. All right, but well, thank you so much. Well, tell us everybody where they can find you online, please.
Yeah, so my blog is rightathome.blog, and I actually have a free ebook that you guys can just put in your email address and get, and it has this turkey recipe as well as 4 other of my favorite Thanksgiving dishes. So if you go to rightathome.blog/holiday-favorites, and I don't know if you can link that in the show notes as well.
I will.
Yeah. And that's just a free ebook you can download right there, and it has this turkey recipe in it, as well as a few other of my favorite Thanksgiving dishes. And like this one, they're all easy, simple, and just make for a really well-rounded Thanksgiving meal.
Perfect. And what about social media? Are you on social media?
I am. Facebook, Right at Home with Violet, and then Instagram, the same, Right at Home with Violet, Pinterest as well. I'm working on getting more active there, but still not posting constantly, so
it's hard to definitely keep up all the things.
Exactly. My blog's definitely one of the best places to find me, but then also Facebook. I've been posting a lot more there lately as well. And you can get some more personal updates there too sometimes.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Kathleen.